Okay, it's 1 o'clock. Let's go ahead and get started. This 1 o'clock session is the relocation roundtable discussion, finding functionally equivalent housing in the seller's market. Our presenters are Jennifer Golson. Jennifer worked for KYTC for over 20 years. She worked most of her career in the District 7 Lexington right-of-way office. In 2013, Jennifer became a right-of-way program specialist in the relocation branch of KYT Central Office. She joined LOCHNER in October of 2015. Since joining LOCHNER, she has been an acquisition agent as well as a relocation assistant agent. Tony Moore. Tony attended Eastern Kentucky University, where he obtained a bachelor's degree in geography, planning, and a minor in natural resource analysis. Mr. Moore began his right-of-way career with the Transportation Cabinet Division of Right-of-Way in 2002. He worked in District 4 for 12 years as a right-of-way agent unit leader. He worked in acquisitions, appraising, excess property transfers, and more notably, relocation. Mr. Moore has worked in Central Office right-of-way relocation for 8 years and currently holds the position of branch manager for the relocation and property management section. He spends his time outside of work relocating his daughters to softball and volleyball tournaments, and occasionally gets to spend time outdoors cycling or hunting. I will now turn the floor over to Tony and Jennifer.
Okay, I don't know if you guys read the description of our session, but this is a roundtable discussion, which means I'm going to do a little bit of talking, and you all have to do a lot of talking. We want to get your feedback on finding comparable housing in the seller's market. As a branch manager, one of the biggest questions I get is, or concerns that I hear is, I can't find houses. I can't find houses. And just the difficulties in finding houses when they're on the market for very limited time. Some areas there are no houses for sale. And if they're on the market, they're there a day. That's probably the biggest concern that I hear, I've heard over the last year and a half. I know our market has slowed a little bit in most areas, but it's still pretty volatile in a lot of, pretty much all the state, especially Louisville, Lexington, Northern Kentucky, Owensboro, everywhere. Pikeville, I know houses there. I have some friends that are realtors in Pike County that, you know, her houses are going, seems like every day she's posting something she sells. It's pretty crazy. So what I'd like to do is get some of your guys' feedback and some participation on what you've done, what's worked for you, what's worked, what I've done, which has been several years ago, lots of years ago, because I've done a computation, I think, in like, I don't know, a long time. But Jennifer's done several recently, I believe, and Allie's approved several of hers, Michael, myself. They did a project in Northern Kentucky, had some unique situations. And I think other agents have talked to me about some unique situations they've had. So probably the biggest thing I hear from you guys would be realtors don't want to show us houses. Has anybody else had that issue besides Jennifer? Julie, John, Kevin, Shauna, Mary Beth. So only, is that everybody that does relocation? Jeremy, I guess. So that's basically all over the state. I think John and Kevin are doing a big project in Ballard, McCracken County. John Woods, you're in what, Summer Are you guys in Somerset doing your big project now? Science Hill, so Pulaski County. Jennifer, you've been in Kent.
We've been in Kenton County. And it's been a little hard to get into houses. But one of our big things is like, we'll go look at the 3 comps and like literally one of them we were in was going pending while we were looking at it. Like there was a couple in there looking at with their realtor. We came in as they were going out and the realtor's on the phone trying to make a contract. So then gotta go find something else. I don't know if anybody else has run into that, but actually having to look at 3, get back and write it up and get it turned in, something's gonna go pending, or that's what we're seeing a lot of. Anybody else did?
How are you getting into house?
And some realtors will let you in, some want to do the virtual tours.
That's all they want to.
Or they want you to look at the pictures online. Yeah.
You know, I think we're doing the real stand up with asking the show for that. I mean, it's, you know, 99% of the time, I'm not going to use to pick that comp. Doing property owners injustice too, that people that own the house have it for sale. They may, I don't know if they hear somebody come by to look at their house, and they may take off work to make up the bed or clean up. That house is not, it's not for sale. But you know, whoever will work.
You know, I was just going to ask, when you have a realtor that wants to do the virtual tour or just have the pictures online, does that satisfy the on-site inspection or the inspection of the comp?
For us at this time, no. Our manual still says that we have to go in, verify the house is DS&S and do personal inspections inside for all 3 comparables. Was Drew in here? Yeah, he's back there. I was talking with Drew earlier. Ohio, they still do the same thing. Everybody must go, you must go in all 3 comparables. And we do all 3 also because if one goes off the market, you can rely on the next one. You don't have to go verify. I know the CFR does state that we don't have to go into all those, but at this time we still do. Until we change it. I know we've had a lot of difficulties in getting in houses.
And I will say, like, if we call a realtor to try to get into a house and you explain to them what you're doing, they're reluctant because, like you said back there, you know, you're not guaranteed they're going to pick the house. So I don't know, we've run into that too.
Well, I'm sorry, Kevin, I couldn't hear you up here.
I said if they truly understand what you're doing, they're not going to not in their best interest.
That's true.
Right. I had that issue years ago where if they know, if you don't lie to your realtor and tell them you want to look at a house, they don't want to show it to you. And we usually get one, you can only do that one time and they figure it out pretty quick what you're doing. They won't show you any more houses.
Why everybody use a virtual tour? They say that's what they're doing it for. It's a virtual tour. They don't want to show the house. We can't get in any of them.
Right. I know it's been tough. Even tougher now. It's like Jennifer said, I think you had mentioned being in a house with 2 or 3 people. Somebody else I was talking to earlier said they were in a house and they were making offers. Mary Beth, you had one with the market recently that was.
Yeah, I did a stage report recently, and I mean, not just the city, I searched the entire county, and I was very vague in my parameters. Square foot, 1 level, 1,800 square feet, 1 level, 3 bedroom, 2 bath. I had 1 house come by.
Which county? Which county?
Pike County.
Pike.
You know, and this was a week after the flooding. You know, so that's even taking down less, you know, the housing market. But I mean, what do you do?
I'm not sure on that one. And increasing the search areas is probably not gonna help you much in that area, because Pike County has more houses than any of the surrounding
Right.
counties.
And something else too in that situation was, which, you know, I don't know what it's gonna appraise for. I don't know what it's gonna appraise for, but I can tell you that just based on my knowledge, you know, you're probably looking at $100,000 RHP, because the one that was available was newer, nicer, you know, and also.
And
Yeah.
Kevin had that same situation. He was working in Kevin Ham. Wolf County, where I think when Kevin did his stage report, there were 8 houses, Kevin, is that?
I think there was 8 total properties. That included farms, anything on the market, there was like 8. You narrowed it down to actual houses, you got down to like 40.
And then you narrowed it down to our parameters
Yeah.
for functional equivalent, and it narrowed it down to 0.
Zero. And that's the whole county and the surrounding counties.
So I think with that, we're in Wolf County. I think, Kevin, we ended up going, did you find someplace in Winchester? Is that correct?
Actually, I think I know the one I actually relied on was in Jackson over in Breathitt County. And I got a little assistance out of the Jackson office that helped me turn me on to this property, or I never would have found it. And it ended up being like an $83,000 RHP. It still went.
Yes, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. We ended up, that was a huge computation. I think, like Kevin said, it was 50-something thousand in the last resort. Just on the computation alone, that didn't count the incidentals and possibly an MID or whatever else he may have been eligible for.
And then we made the guy mad with the offer, and he, after we had to evict him, hired a track over to tear his house, tear his own house down.
Yes, so he relocated himself with a tracker. So we didn't actually end up even paying a move payment or the RHP. Some people just don't want you in their house, so they'll tear it down. I think that was a pretty unique situation with that one. Go ahead, Mary Beth.
What do you consider a reasonable distance? How far away will you get from the subject?
Well, I guess Jackson, Hampton, probably it's a 30-minute drive. But you know, I felt fortunate just to find that. I was tempted to be able to use that.
But they can't use, when you start getting into that, I know in that situation, once you go outside of a particular county, that goes into different counties if they have school-age children, or maybe they have some specific requirement. Aren't we going outside of the realm of comparability on those tests? And in that situation, does the Uniform Act and does the policy have any allowances for deviation? Maybe single comps are based on new construction or those type of things.
We can, yes, it does. And remember, the house has to be functionally equivalent, meaning like think what you're getting at was less desirable neighborhood. Typically, we do not have people. I don't know if we've ever had somebody appeal a computation that we've approved. Typically, when we're looking at functionally equivalent, we always go better than what they have. I don't know if I've ever seen an appeal that came back.
We had one.
Of course, Mary Beth had one, but how long ago was that? I'm better at approving these than Mary Beth was when she had my job. So.
Fair County and all. He appealed it on sponsor.
Oh, yeah, Randy Murray appeals everything.
And what we found comparable was the Bowling Green. And he appealed it on the fact that it was, but, you know, it was less than 50 miles. So.
Right. And to me personally, I don't want to see you going that far, you know, especially over, you know, our main of the right state moves are limited to 50 miles. So I don't want to call somebody out the house that's 100 miles away. To me, that's not the same neighborhood. It's not functionally equivalent. I don't know if going outside that area, to me, it's not a real good idea. I'm personally probably not going to approve one that's that far. Like Kevin's, your 30 minutes, that's getting there. Plus you have to look at their places of employment where they work. If you're comping me at a house that's 100 miles away from where I work, that's not acceptable. You're not in the same neighborhood.
I think if this gentleman had appealed that would be 30 miles away. I think technically he would have won the appeal. You know, if he want to play hardball and say, you know, you're supposed to count me out, well, I should have counted him out in Wolf County, which we would still be looking, and the Mountain Parkway project wouldn't have been electric construction. You know, so we're just lucky in some cases they don't press the issue.
And that guy, I'm surprised he didn't, because I know you explained the appeal process and everything to him. So it's,
Hey, Tony, with everything that's going on in eastern Kentucky, we go work on the Mountain Parkway again. How are we going to certify there's available housing on the acquisition stage report? Since there isn't any housing, everything's temporary.
all right. Dean, do you want to chime in on that one? I'm gonna throw you under the bus.
So when the rate is down, you don't have to.
So we're pushing that one out a little farther now.
Yeah, they're going across the map.
Okay. I'm assuming we reduced the relocations.
Long story.
But we reduced relocations, right? That's what we did.
Yeah, that won't be it. Well, it's political guys right now.
Gotcha. So Mount Parkway is not happening right now, Kevin. I mean, it is, but not in this room.
Yeah, the thing is, you know, putting the Mountain Parkway aside, it seems like pretty much everything in Eastern Kentucky right now and for the foreseeable future, it would be hard to say that there's adequate replacement housing.
Well, and we had the same issue for the project you and John are working on, Ballard McCracken with the tornadoes.
You know, really though, that didn't turn out to be as big of an issue as we initially thought. Partly because we were far enough west from where that actually happened, the housing market wasn't as effective as we initially thought it would be.
Right. I know in that era when we first started, I think there was a letter in the newspaper that you had sent me and put in your stage report or reference that about the, I can't remember the exact number of homes that were destroyed out there, but it put a huge impact on the market. And of course, part of your guys' relocation, we acquired a bunch of mobile homes, which guess what? That's what was taken in a tornado. So it's.
And that's the fact of getting in these houses, you know, it's hard enough getting into houses available for sale, getting into houses that's available for rent. You know, you call somebody up and you happen to find out on the street corner that they've got a mobile home for rent because they typically don't advertise. And you call them and tell them you want to go through and take pictures. Well, are you know, they start asking you all kinds of questions about your income and where you work, and, you know, and then when you tell them, I'm not going to rent it for myself, then you're shut down right there.
Yeah, that definitely complicates things. I don't know if I have any solutions to that one. I know we have a representative from Ohio here. Drew, do you have any insight on, he's like, now I'm on the spot on what you're talking about.
With Kenny about this, probably. What was the question again? Are there any houses available? So, yes, of course we've got houses available. I can tell you some. But it varies wildly across the state, you know, from more rural to urban areas. In the urban areas, so like around Columbus, where I'm from, normally the normal residential market's going to have about 4,500 listings available, and earlier this summer we had about 1,500. So like the stock was down. Obviously, things are going back up with interest rates going again. But in more rural parts of the state, in southern Ohio, we had issues with. There are 0 houses on the MLS. And so we had a project in Gallia County, which is along the Ohio River. And we had, I think, 5 homes that we ended up comping them all to new builds because that was the only option with no homes on the MLS.
So with the new build, how did you provide that as being functionally equivalent when it's not available yet?
I mean, there's some magic there.
We need some of that, because when we have that in Northern Kentucky, we find a lot of houses that are under construction to be built, but they're not there. And they would work perfect, but they're not there yet. Some of them may have a basement for it, but it may be 6 months before they're available.
Oh, no, that's exactly what was happening here. We've identified a lot, we know the cost, we've identified a builder, they've given us the cost. This is the total cost. This is when they say it can be done. We know we're not going to need to kick them out until blah, blah, blah time. In that particular project, it was great because we didn't really have a timetable for them because it was a resurfacing project and they were just all encroaching. Way too long a story. But so we had to relocate them, but we didn't care about when they were gone. So it ended up that the timing didn't mess with us.
So that's something that I would definitely be open to also. I think if there's new construction, we have the letting dates not 2 weeks out and you're still trying to comp somebody, which we have those. Julie, you're shaking your head. You have one now that you have a comp. You have a letting in December and an offer to make. And we look for a while for that. Luckily there are houses available to look for. But so yes, that's you would have to picture of what's there and send it in on the paperwork. That's
I'm sure there's some type of builder has drawings that you could use. And would not the contract kind of be a insurance that the home would be DS&S?
yes, and that's why I say, I mean, it will be DS. We know that house being built, the new construction is going to be DS&S, or they're not going to get an occupancy permit.
We don't have to go to letting
Right. If we're doing houses like that, we're going to have to make sure you are early in the project. You have enough time for letting, and that's all. If you're sending one in to me like that to review, or Allie or Michael gets it, whoever we send it to.
I think we covered it. So,
Yes.
hey, only without that you have a delay, then you might call. How did I have
Fuel Church Road, when he contracted for his house, it was going to be $239,000, and 2 weeks later it was $259,000. And it was $289,000 by the time it closed. So what do we do about that?
Sounds like you should have got his house under contract faster. I mean, once you're under contract, that's the price. Should be the price of your house.
We were lucky to get him at all. He was a little bit off the wall. He had some medical problems.
And I don't know how you help that situation where that seems like when it's pretty unique.
These were like, I don't know what to call the homes. They were built side by side by side. You know, they went up $20,000 3 times before we ever got him under contract.
And that was because of the market.
Yeah, it's because of the way the market is.
And we ran into one of our people we were relocating in Kenton County was going to build a house, and it was going to be done by like, I don't remember, March. And so the district said that would be okay. And then products got delayed and all this, and now it's going to be April, then May. So she had to just actually go buy some. I don't know how you would.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Luckily, that's up to them to buy something. We just need to comp them out. They can find their houses.
It always seems to me like we're not trying to find these people a house. In 33 years, I've only had somebody to buy a comp that I've used just a few times. And most of the time, that's because they told me about this comp and I was there. So, you know, it seems like we're just trying to determine the price of it takes to put these people back home.
And that's exactly what we're determining a number. We're not trying to find them a house. Yes, we will make it functionally equivalent, but we don't know what they want. You can't buy a house I can't buy a house for anybody in this room to make them happy.
Yeah, you could.
Well, I make you live there. You don't have a choice.
Hey, Tony, with natural disaster, they know we talked about that. One thing is
effects of that it's had on the economy, had on the actual housing market, it's going to be felt for a long period of time. And there is a potential that a lot of these homeowners who were homeowners before, now they're FEMA trailer livers, and how you look at it, they're going to be stuck there. So in a situation where we have a road project that comes in and would be taking the footprint of the home, the previously home that is now, 200 feet downstream, does the manual or that, do we have that under review as far as, do we base it on the subject of the home that is no longer there because they're living in the FEMA trailer, or do we base it on the FEMA trailer?
You're saying we're acquiring, we don't take anything. We're acquiring their house that used to be?
Well, the property, see, they're under, and when they're in that FEMA situation, they're living in a temporary dwelling until their new dwelling is built. But now a road project may be coming in and taking that footprint, that previous footprint. Would we?
Now they don't live there. They're not good. They're not eligible.
Move on.
That's right. If they were living there, we're good. I don't know about that one. Let's hope we don't run into that one. One of the things another issue that I think that we've seen a lot, we're talking about tenants. It seems that a lot of the rents have increased significantly over the last 2 to 3 years, like 3 times what they were paying. Houses that were $575 are close to $1,200–1,500 a month. And they're paying that rent. That's their actual rent. So on top of being low income, we're seeing huge gaps in actual rent compared to what's now market rent. And I know we can change but these are arm's length transactions, so you can't determine market length on them. So we're seeing huge, $30,000 tenant computations. I don't know how to fix that. I don't think we can fix that. I think it's something we're going to have to live with, unfortunately, and bite the bullet, document, justify, and then justify some more of why we're doing it and why it's how it's going to be financially feasible for some of these people to do it. I don't know if it is. When you're paying, has anybody else run into that? I know I've seen it several where I think, Julie, you had some District 11 that you were working on, that their rents were significantly different.
That's that $40,000 in Henderson County for a tenant.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's last resort for an owner. We have tenants, and I assume we're not the only state that sees that. We see tenants that, for no other than being low income, fall into last resort. If it wasn't for that, there'd be a zero computation. Sometimes that's just what it is. Document it, justify it, and we'll try to get it approved if that's the only situation we have. One of the other things that we had to discuss is this kind of goes back with the realtors not wanting to show us houses. A lot of people are buying houses, it seems, online. Seems crazy to me to buy a house and never go in it, but I think that's becoming more common than that we've seen. I think you've had just a little bit.
Tony, I know we had one that house has sold 3 times since we made the offer. Now we purchased it from the third owner. Now it's one. Well, first owner sold it. Second owner sold it the day after. Third owner we bought it from, and then they had it under contract to sell after we got through it. And I don't know that anyone ever went in the house.
Just so even with us buying it, it's still sold.
Well, and we were just doing a partial acquisition. Wasn't a whole house.
Okay, gotcha. Right.
And so they're rolling them over as quick as they can. And what are the thoughts about going back to the one comp?
We've approved several recently using one comp. I don't know if we can go back to one comp if that was ever really a thing. I think it's always been 3, but it's how stringent we've been on three. I know myself, Allie, Michael, Dean with the ones that come in the last resort, we've been a little more lenient on using 1, 2 comps if possible. Yeah, we understand finding 3 houses when people are buying houses unseen. Their houses are on the market for 3 hours. We understand in certain areas you're not going to find 3 comps, and that's fine. But we want that to be the exception, not the rule. You know, if you send in one, because whenever you guys send in a comp, me and myself, like, we get on realtor.com, we get on Zillow or whatever, we look up, do a quick search, and if we find 4 houses that fall into that category that could be functionally equivalent, you better be using 3. But if we look on there and we see none, and you have this, this diamond that you found somewhere that it fits, yeah, we're going to let that one use 1 comp. You know, you are going to have to write a paragraph justifying using 1 and document your search. If I see the appraisal was approved on August 31st and it's September 7th, I'm probably not approving it. And it's $30,000 in the last resort. You know, you look for 6 days or whatever, you know, that's not a sufficient search. I realize some of our tight time frames. That's one of the other things we'll take into consideration. Look at the letting dates. And if your letting date's still 9, 10 months out, a year out, probably not going to approve that first one coming in that's $30,000 over at $60,000 computation. You're gonna have to document what you looked at, what's been on the market, how long it's been there. You know, just keep track. Let us know. We're not unreasonable. We know what's going on out in the world. Yes.
What about selling versus asking price adjustments?
That was
That was
one of the things on the list. Not at this time. I know at one time, probably about 6 months ago, we really heavily considered this. FHWA just sent out some stuff recently. Going back to, I'm sure half of us in this room probably remember, prior to 2005, we had to do the asking versus selling price memo on every project. And then after 2005, that was no longer required. Because the houses aren't selling or weren't selling for over their asking price. Or now, I think the house next door to me sold for $30,000 over its asking price. The house on the other side of me recently sold for almost $40,000 over the asking. You know, that's a pretty significant amount when you're talking about a $300,000 house. No, I don't live in that because I work for the state. I live in the lot cheaper house. I got in at a good time. But I don't think we're going to do that this time. I think Drew from Ohio is here. They have started this, and some of the stipulations on doing asking first, you know, I started reading the memo from FHWA. You guys aren't going to do it. I know it, because you have to update that I think it was every month or every 2 weeks. You have to go out and find at least 5 comparables that sold, 5 that, and what they're asking, what they sold for, and keep up with that information monthly or weekly. And I just don't see everybody doing that. It's a lot of extra work for what I see in the market now, I don't really see the asking versus selling. If you guys do, we may look into that and get the approval.
I mean, I hope this never happens, but just what if? What if I use a comp and the person goes and tries to make an offer to buy that comp and they're bidding for it, and you know, only way they're going to get that comp is $30,000 more than what the asking price is. Like I said, hope this don't happen, but if time goes on the way it's going, it's bound to happen at some point.
And I thought of that and ran that through my head. And I think at this time, there's not going to be able to get the house.
time you cross that bridge, it's happening.
He's gonna choke.
I didn't bring my water. So we may be done. Good. Yeah, hopefully that won't happen. I know, Drew, you guys do the asking versus selling. Even when you do the asking versus selling price, it's only capped at a certain amount of whatever you determine the average is. So if you choose 5 houses and all 5 of them sold for 10,000 over the asking price, you add 10,000 on to their computation. So if they're at 30,000, that's on them. They should have, I guess they should negotiate better, but sometimes you can't. You're just gonna have to find a different house.
So we've had our policy in place since July 12th, and it was retroactive to June 1st. I'm looking at it. It's like 20 pages long. And we have not used it yet, but we have 2 projects where we are going to use it. And your description's not inaccurate, but if anybody wants to read it, I'm happy to send you the memo. You can become an expert. We've got lots of examples and ideas how it's going to be. But we came to an agreement with Federal Highway how we're going to implement it, and I'll describe it as being slightly less onerous than what your worst case scenario would be.
So they backed down a little bit on what initially was proposed.
Yes, our division Austin. Yeah,
Right.
We said, hey, we think this is reasonable. They said, sure, go for it.
Right. Yeah. Because when I first read it, it was like, this is, you know, in the past, like prior to 2005, you just did it one time on the project and you were good to go. And this one wanted updates and updates. And I was like, that's a lot of updating to do. And I know you guys have trouble getting things from realtors now. So you're not going to get that information from them either. I realize they don't want to work with you. We only have a few minutes left. One of the things I want to talk about real quick is ways to get these things approved and or your computations approved, and once have all your paperwork ready. If you know you're going to look at 3 houses, have everything written up except for your comparables. You can have your worksheets almost done, your correlation done. I think, Jennifer, you guys have done that.
We do it all, and like our correlation, we base it on what's online, the description, and then we'll take our laptop with us and plug the pictures in and send it on. Because they go so quick.
Yeah, notify me or Allie, Michael, you know, call us, send us an email, say, hey, I'm getting ready to send a computation in. So we'll be watching. We see them anyway, we look for them, but especially if you had your email properly and it says RHP, that's the first thing I open when I look through my emails. Those are the take priority over everything. Because I'm not going to be the reason for your house going off the market and you guys not, you know, make an offer. So if you do a lot of that paperwork up front, that's going to reduce your time. If you come back and spend 2 days writing it up for some reason, your house is gone. You know, you can have 90% of that paperwork done, ready to go, and send it. I know back in 2008, when we were doing in E-Town, we were working on Patriot Parkway, 313. We had 5 or 6 projects going on that had a ton of relocations. I think one project had 23 relocations on the one project. 25. Was it 25? And that was just the first section. There were 3 sections of that road. So when
Didn't get that vacant land across, we didn't take that subdivision.
yes, yeah, and take the whole, yes. But at that time, I know 2008 was a very slow time in the market for most places, but in E-Town, it was huge because we had BRAC, which is the Base Realignment and Closure Act, was going on, where Fort Knox built this huge, that was the 2nd largest government building in the country. It brought their Human Resource Command, like 10,000 people into the area. So houses were selling, same thing. They were just right off the market. Mary Beth was in my position at the time. And I would call her from the driveway, tell her what it was, and she'd say, make the offer. And would give me a verbal approval, and I could make their offer, and then follow with paperwork that afternoon. I know that was pretty extreme, and a lot of times I have the paperwork done ahead of time too.
But it was just about that situation, and you've got to look at it project by project.
Right. And we knew those places were going to be gone. And then you get in and did they have enough time to even negotiate a contract? Fortunately, we didn't have that problem, but you do run into that where you may have to recomp somebody. And I'm told to stop. So if you have any other problems, come see us afterwards. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take a brief break and reconvene in 10 minutes.
Things that Eastern or Central, that's whichever one you want.